Once again, all eyes are on Kentucky. We had a major election this past cycle where the whole country was focused on whether Kentucky would pass an abortion amendment. Well, drew a lot of focus on our election cycle. Well, we have another election cycle for governor, race between Daniel Cameron and the incumbent Andy Beshear, and this is probably it's the only really contested race for governor this year. So, and this being a year before a major presidential election, this is a kind of a bellwether election. So everyone's looking at Kentucky again. And so as Kentuckians and as conservatives, we want to really break this down. We're about less than a few weeks away now before November. So we wanted to talk about the race, see where we are. And we thought no one better to discuss that with other than Lee Watts, the producer and creator of Patriot Point, which is just becoming one of the fastest growing YouTube channels out there for all things Kentucky politics. So check him out online, Patriot Point, Lee Watts. So Lee, thanks for being on the show. We've got a race, and it's pretty interesting. We're in this final 30 days here, and the knives are coming out. And so, what's your sense? The polls are still showing that Beshear is slightly up, and so, which makes sense. He's got a strong brand. COVID gave him a good brand and a good name. And incumbents always have a slight advantage. However, Cameron is a statewide well-known figure, and you would think he would be able to get some traction, especially with some of the missteps that Beshear has had. But he doesn't seem to have the traction I thought he would have at this point. But maybe that's because the polling is just inaccurate or something. But anyway, just what's your general take of where we're at right now with the election?
Well, I'm going to have to agree with you as far as the traction bit goes. We have not really seen the Cameron campaign up to this point really pushing very hard. He's had a lot of public appearances, but as far as statewide ads and commercials, they've been following a strategy that really came out of the McConnell camp, which is you wait to do all of that great big push until 30 days out. And we are just now beginning that 30 days out. I don't know how that's going to work out for them because we've seen the Beshear campaign, instead of doing everything at the end, they've kind of been spreading out their efforts throughout the last several months. And I think that's why we're seeing the Beshear campaign head in the polls right now, because they've been running at full steam, while the Cameron campaign has the idea, let's wait till the very last lap, and then we'll pump out all the energy we can. They didn't ask my opinion on it, but if they had, I would have started spinning things probably 60 or 90 days out instead of 30 days, because I'm hearing a lot of conservatives around the state, and they're all saying, yes, they're going to vote for Cameron. There's no way they'd vote for Beshear, but they're all concerned at the same thing, that there doesn't seem to be a momentum behind the campaign right now. Right. And I think that's the reason why, because they've held off till this last month before they really give it all they have.
I tend to agree. I mean, I look around, I just don't see yard signs. That's kind of rule number one in a campaign. It's like, I want my Cameron yard sign. I signed up for it at the state fair a month ago. No call. Haven't seen one yet. But now, but to your point, their theory is that they're going to start delivering these yard signs now. Now we're in October, so things start rolling out. And but I don't know. There seems to be a strategy that you're right. Is they're waiting to the last minute to kind of explode this promotion effort. But in this day and age with early voting and all this, I just wonder if that's smart anymore. We no longer have election day; it's election season now.
Right.
It's right.
And there's something that I noticed during the primary campaign, which may have affected their strategy here, is during the primary for the positions of like state auditor, state treasurer, even secretary of state, we saw the incumbents put almost zero money into yard signs and big billboard type signs. We saw almost 100% of their funds going into just mass media TV and radio.
Mm.
And it was the challengers who had invested heavily in yard signs and those the big signs that you'd see in businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And they would have 20 or 30 to 1 against the incumbent. And yet the incumbents won. And so I think part of the strategy is changing, saying, listen, these yard signs may not have the impact that they used to have. And instead, you could spend money for the big media campaign and get a bigger bang for your buck. So we might be seeing less and less because of that primary results, at least out of the Republican side. We'll see if it works for them this year. Then I think these will be going the way of the dodo. But if it fails, well, they may go back to it in the next cycle.
Interesting. Yeah. And of course, the whole digital space, people no longer live in the real world. They're living in a virtual world as much as the real world. So having a pop-up on your phone is probably more visible than your neighbor's yard sign in your life. So it's just the way the world we live in. So that's interesting. So polls, obviously, are still showing them up, and I'm not totally sure. I think Cameron is doing some things right. I think there's a momentum question, and I think you're saying it's the strategy is what you're seeing is.
I think they have done this on purpose. I think they would have liked to have had some more grassroots natural momentum, and they, in my opinion, they should have been helping that along. But I do think it is a strategic choice that they've made.
Okay, all right. And so, all right. So let's talk messaging in the campaigns. What's getting traction? A few months ago, you had an ad that Cameron put out that was attacking Bashir as it related to, gender transition surgeries for minors, for children, basically saying, hey, Andy is behind allowing 9 and 10-year-olds to get gender transition surgery from become boys to girls or girls to boys, and oddly enough, we were going to play the spot, but YouTube has blocked it. Our tech overlords in Silicon Valley they don't believe in freedom anymore. But that ad got a lot of attention. Bashir responded and said, "Hey, no, I'm not against this." So that was a real interesting little cultural battle that was spun up from an ad. But what are your thoughts on that particular controversy?
Well, this is probably the key hitting thing the Cameron campaign has going for it right now, is that he's standing up and pushing against this radical leftist transgender agenda. And that hits home with a lot of Kentuckians. We saw there was a bill this year before the Kentucky State Legislature, which passed. It was Senate Bill 150, that would put an end to this in schools, making it illegal, because there was reports of some schools over in California and New York where the child would go to school as a boy or girl and come back the other way without notifying the parents. And just this atrocities of things going on. So Kentucky passed that bill. The left tried, and they used every punch they had to stop it, and they overwhelmingly failed. Kentuckians turned out in droves saying, we support banning this. Let's protect children from these mutilation surgeries. And the Cameron campaign realized this is really hitting home with people. So that's the messaging they started to put out. However, as you had very accurately mentioned, you have YouTube, and the leftists are saying, we're not even going to allow you to run this campaign. We are seeing that they are directly impacting and affecting Kentucky elections. Now, they'll let Bashir run any kind of ad that he wants. I have yet to hear the Bashir campaign or any of their supporters even claim that YouTube or the mass media have taken down any of their commercials, and yet we are seeing that happen with the conservatives. I know I've created several episodes of Patriot Point that stayed up for about 30 minutes before they were taken down by the fascists over there in Silicon Valley. So it is having a major impact. I think that's their messaging. They'd be good. They're going to have to get it out through the mail and other means. Cameron's campaign is pushing, saying, children who have been raped in some horrible way shouldn't have to give birth. And nobody is going to try to lessen what a horrific act that rape is. However, killing a child does not make the rape go away. Right. And killing a child when one's already been horribly injured, those two wrongs do not make a right. And so I think that
we are here to defend democracy.
Misinformation poses a threat to our nation's health.
Climate change is an emergency.
Democratic socialism.
Codify one's right to choose.
Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15.
rate go away. And killing a child when one's already been horribly injured, does two wrongs do not make a right. And so I think that Bashir is trying to play to the far left, but I think he will fail in that messaging because the majority of Kentuckians, I believe, aren't going to buy the idea that two wrongs make a right.
That's exactly right. Well, since you touched on that particular spot, we do have that one queued up, of course. You know, the YouTube overlords will allow us to play a Bashir spot. So just for context, we're going to play it, and this has gotten a lot of buzz in the past week or so. So let's go ahead and play this latest commercial.
I was raped by my stepfather after years of sexual abuse. I was 12. Anyone who believes there should be no exceptions for rape and incest could never understand what it's like to stand in my shoes. This is to you, Daniel Cameron. To tell a 12-year-old girl she must have the baby of her stepfather who raped her is unthinkable. I'm speaking out because women and girls need to have options. Daniel Cameron would give us none.
There we go. Very powerful spot. Very powerful spot. It makes an insinuation that Daniel Cameron is against all exceptions when it comes to the abortion issue. And, you know, an abortion, what's interesting is, you know, since the overturning of Roe v. Wade and, there we go, EAS going off. See, the Silicon Valley overlords knew we were doing this show. They're going to interrupt the program.
Yep, there goes
So
mine.
there we go. The national test we're doing. So it was my point. Yeah. Anyway, so this spot is important because basically, you know, abortion is now a state issue. You know, ever since Roe v. Wade was overturned, it gets pushed back to the states. So it makes sense to make it a huge issue in a governor's campaign because the governor can certainly veto or support bills bills that affect abortion. And so interesting that the Bashir campaign is using that. And of course, they knew they were going to use it. This is the good timing. Let's do it 30 days out. Let's hammer it. And however, we're going to play a response that Cameron had to that ad. So let's play that response.
It's unfortunate, but Andy Bashir is running the most despicable campaign in Kentucky history. Now, he lectures us on partisanship and unity, then runs disgusting false attacks. I've said if the legislature were to bring me a bill with exceptions, I would sign it. Now, contrast that to Andy Bashir, an extremist whose record in public office is clear. He supports abortion through the 9th month. His policies are what they have in North Korea and China. He even vetoed a bill requiring medical care for infants born alive after a failed abortion. Andy vetoed every pro-life bill he saw because Planned Parenthood and Joe Biden said too. Now, there's an extremist in this race, and it is Andy Bashir.
Powerful and well said. Yeah, exactly. If you're for abortion at the 9th month, which is basically infanticide, then who's the extremist here? So that's I can't agree with him more. But so there we go. So this is a hot issue. Lee, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, I think the Bashir campaign is taking their leads from what happened with the Kentucky's proposed constitutional amendment last year that would say we are going to ban abortion entirely without the exceptions for rape or incest. And that measure failed. And so I think they're taking their lead saying, well, then the most of Kentuckians don't want this. I think that they are misreading that. I think there was some confusion with the wording of the bill. There was other constitutional amendments. On one, it was the conservatives were voting yes. On the other, they're voting no. And I think there was a lot of confusion on that bill, a lot of false messaging on it. So, but that's, I think, where they're getting their idea that this is what most Kentuckians want. If the Cameron campaign was actually allowed to put out their message and let people see what you just played, it has a perfect response to it. But we see that the media is not playing the neutral fourth estate. They're very much pushing the leftist liberal agenda.
We are here to defend democracy.
Misinformation poses a threat to our nation's health.
Climate change is an emergency.
Democratic socialism.
Codify women's right to choose.
Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15.
Election were bragging about how some of the techniques that they use, like getting out not paper or mail-in ballots, just flooding the zone with mail-in ballots, and how that was just a strategy that they knew going into the election that we can use this to defeat Republicans. So. We need to tighten up our elections, and until that happens, people are going to start more and more lose faith in our elections. And really, when it comes to politics and running a country, folks, you only have two options. It's either ballots or bullets. Let me say that again. It's either ballots or bullets, because you're talking about power, and who has the power to actually control our governance, our country, our state, et cetera. And so when people start losing faith.
Very correct. I've heard it said there's three boxes in the political sphere. You have the soap box, you have the ballot box, then you have the cartridge box.
That's right.
And that's the progression of those three things. Exactly
right. And we need to tighten this up, folks, because if we lose faith in that, then there we go. Then it's just might makes right. And that's not where we want to be as this country, and that's not who we are. We're Americans. We're good people. We've got a sense of what's right and wrong, and we know something's not right now. So anyway, can I give you my opinion on who I think this person might be? This Trump voter.
I'd love to hear that.
And so, and I haven't done the study on this, and I'm sure there's some political scientists out there that may. It could be that there's more turnout in the presidential election, so maybe that's the difference. So there's just much more enthusiasm for the presidential tickets than a governor's race. So maybe that explains it. Or it could be this middle class female in the suburbs of Fayette County and Jefferson County that are that might vote Trump, but seems odd if they would vote for Trump and Bashir. But that is a swing voter that both candidates are going after. And these last two commercials we talked about are targeted directly at that type of voter. Either talking about children in both spots, or women's rights with abortion. So this my 2 cents. That might be the voter is, but doesn't make up the huge difference. So 20 points versus 4,000 vote win for Bashir. Again, it doesn't make sense. But anyway, so Lee, where do you feel like this is going? Do you think there's enough of you think there's still a moment here where some traction can occur, that Cameron can get his message out and to sway voters? And then the other question is it just a different year because of just the overwhelming number of Republican registrations we've had since the last governor's election? Maybe there's just a natural advantage for Cameron that polls aren't taking in, and just, it's a different year. The zeitgeist is different,
I think we will see an uptick in the momentum because, again, they're pushing now. This last 30 days is going to be their big push. The question is, will it be enough to overcome the advantage that the Bashir has, not only through him pushing so far, but of course, as the incumbent, you always have an advantage because your name has been out there more, even more than Attorney General. People will know who the governor is. And you can never underestimate the propaganda value that Andy Bashir was given for about a year and a half of having free airtime on nearly every TV and radio station in the state, where he could just go up and push his message. And that is an incredible, you could never buy that much free airtime. But he was given it. And again, that was the reason why they wanted to position him. So I think it will be incredibly tight on election night in the governor's race. For all the other positions, I think it'll be called for the Republican candidate before the polls are probably even closed. But this will be the one and only one, and it'll be very interesting. It's been said before, Kentucky, again, is a bellwether state. You had mentioned that, and usually whatever Kentucky does during the next year, the presidential election, usually the same thing happens on a national level. So this will be a good sign to see what's going to be happening with the Trump and Biden rematch. Because I'm just going to go ahead and call the primary for Trump even before Election Day.
Absolutely. Yeah, well said. Well, that's a very good point you make. Yeah, so think about it. In 2019, what happened? Bashir won. He beat a very conservative Trump-like governor. Or what happened in 2020? Biden beat Trump. So that's interesting. So this could be prophetic in a sense of what happens with our national campaign.
So make sure you get out there and vote.
That's
For anyone who needs to change their registration because you have moved or anything, you have until October the 10th.
Right.
You must have your registration done by 4 p.m. October the 10th in order to vote in the upcoming election.
Really, October 10th. So we're shooting this early in October. So, and I think by the time this program airs, it's going to be already October 10th. So you're saying if you have not registered by October 10th, you cannot vote in this election?
You will be ineligible to vote in this election.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of people watching that are registered, however, and you have friends that are. Seriously, folks, get your friends out to vote. This last election was won by Bashir by just a handful of votes, and that's going to happen again this time. We're going to have a close election by a handful of votes. The way things are lining up, every vote counts. All your friends, your family, your coworkers, your folks that are like-minded, that that have good, solid conservative values and want to see Kentucky remain a solid red state, a Republican conservative state. Got to get them to vote. All your friends at church, especially. Churches need to have a registration drive. This Sunday, they need to. I think you can almost do ballot harvesting on some level in this state. That should probably occur at churches this time around. Do you have any thoughts on that? Can that happen? Is there?
Churches are perfectly legal for a church to have a voter registration drive. A voter registration drive in and of itself is not a partisan position. It's just getting people involved in the process. And we are obligated as Christians to do that. If you look over back in the book of, I believe it's Exodus chapter 18, if I'm not mistaken, they're giving instructions on how to do things for the nation of Israel. And it says, choose out from among you men of honest report and set over them to be rulers of hundreds, thousands, fifties, and tens. And we see there that it wasn't God saying, I'm going to choose these different people. It says, choose out from among you men of honest report to put in charge. So there we see a biblical principle saying it is our responsibility to choose the right people to be in charge of our different levels of government. A biblical principle saying it's our obligation to vote.
and we'd say our responsibility, it's a Christian's responsibility. Yeah, that's in churchgoers. So absolutely. So that's, I couldn't agree with that more. Very, very well said. Well, Lee, thank you for being on the show today. We're going to see what happens here. I think we're going to do election night coverage. I think we're going to have you involved that evening. So look out for that. And like I said, get out and vote. That's our last thought on this. Get out and vote. And we recommend and we endorse Daniel Cameron, even though we want to be fair when it comes to the issues here. But we think he is definitely qualified and the better candidate with better views and policies. So thanks for watching this station. We'll see you next week.
We are here to defend democracy.
Misinformation poses a threat to our nation's health.
Climate change is an emergency.
Democratic socialism.
Codify women's right to choose.
Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15